Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhi Tamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Apyayantu Mamangani Vak Pranashchakshushrotramatho Balamindriyani Cha Sarvani Sarvam Brahmopanishadam Maham Brahma Nirakuryam Ma Brahma Nirakarot Anirakaranamastu Anirakaranam Me Astu Tadatmani Nirateya Upanishatsu Dharmaha Te Mai Santo Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, so today we will do the full review of Kenopanishad from the beginning till the end so that we know kind of what we did during this Upanishad. Now I've prepared some slides so that it'll be easier for you to follow along. And I'll go ahead and just share that with you here. Right, there you go. Okay. So Kenopanishad now has 4 chapters, as we have seen. And the first chapter of Kenopanishad opens with a prayer. But before we go to that prayer, first we come into the meaning of the Upanishad. This is the first Upanishad that we're taking, so it's good to just review. Upa means samipe, means going near. Ni means nishchayena, with determination. And shad, it's sad, which becomes shad, it really means 3 things: avasadana, gati, and visharana, which is loosening, distraction, and attainment. Loosening is avasadana, distraction is visharana, and attainment is gati. So Upanishad means that knowledge of the self, which is attained by going near or approaching the teacher with determination, with sincerity, to loosen these bonds of samsara, to destroy this ignorance and all of its effects, and also to attain that ultimate goal of life, which is the realization of the self. This is what the word Upanishad means. Upanishad means knowledge of the self, knowledge of the truth. It's not a book. The secondary meaning is it's a book, but the primary meaning is it's knowledge of the self. And this Upanishad starts with the Shanti mantra, which is a peaceful invocation, which is what we just chanted. And this invocation is very, very beautiful because it says, you know, please protect my limbs, my speech, my pranas, my vital airs, my eyes, and my ears. And please give me that strength. And all of these teachings are the Upanishads. All of these are just Brahman, which is what is indicated by the Upanishads. And may I never deny Brahman. Maham Brahma Nirakurya. May I never deny Brahman. May I never forget that I am that self. And Mama Brahma Nirakarot. And may that Brahma here means Ishvara. May that Ishvara never deny me. Means may that Ishvara not spurn me or not also forget about me. So may there be non-denial from my part and also from the part of Ishvara. And whatever the dharmas or the values that are indicated in the Upanishad, whatever those values are, may they stay in me. May they repose in me. May they be ever alive in me. Om, peace, peace, peace. So now this Upanishad is called Kena Upanishad. When you put Kena and Upanishad together, it becomes Kenopanishad. It's a Sanskrit sending rule. Kena means by what or by who. So that's what this word Kena means. So this Upanishad is called Kena Upanishad because the first mantra starts with Kena. Kene shitam patati preshitam manaha. That's how it starts. So the first question is really, by whom or by what do my mind, pranas, and sense organs function? This is what the student is asking in the Upanishad. So now we'll look at it in a lighter context. So let us see here, just as an example, so we can understand the question. By whom or what does the computer function? So take that by what do my body, pranas, mind, etc., by what do they function? By what does the computer function? And really, an example that I'd given you before is the hardware of the computer is like the body, right? And the software is like the mind, the one that has all the programming and all kinds of things in it is a mind. But the electricity is really the Atma. So what the student's asking here is what makes all of this function? What makes the hardware and the software function? And in terms of the computer, it's electricity. And in terms of us, it's Atma. And note that we can't see electricity. We can only see its expression. The same way we cannot see Atma or Brahman, we can just see its expression. So why can't the body or the mind or the intellect, why can't they function on their own? And the answer to this is because they are inert. Inert means it's not self-revealing. It cannot know itself. It cannot know something else. So the body cannot reveal itself, nor does it reveal anything else. The body itself doesn't know that it's tired or hungry. The body doesn't know that. It's inert. Same way with the mind, it cannot reveal itself. And it appears to reveal the body, the mind, the body and the senses. It appears to reveal that, but it's because it's illumined by consciousness. And so we saw here, just like in the presence of fire, water becomes hot, but the heat doesn't belong to water. That heat belongs to fire. So in the presence of consciousness, the mind becomes sentient, but that sentiency doesn't really belong to the mind, it belongs to the self. And so we think that the mind is that which illumines everything. We think that, but it's actually the self. The mind is inert and the body is inert. Can we prove this further? So how do we know that the mind is illumined by consciousness? So here we see what the mind is: thoughts of an emotional nature, intellect, thoughts of a discerning nature. So we know that the mind is illumined by consciousness because we're aware of our thoughts. We're aware of our thoughts. We're directly aware of our thoughts. This is something that you can understand or grasp here and now. You're aware of your thoughts, but your thoughts are not aware of you. So therefore, that mind cannot reveal itself. It needs something to reveal it. And also we see that without those thoughts that come and go, without all that parade of thoughts, we see that I'm still there. So the I that's there doesn't need the mind to reveal me. I am there with or without that mind. And in fact, I reveal the mind because I am aware of my thoughts. So because I reveal the mind, I illumine the mind, I also illumine the body through the mind. Then I am consciousness, and the mind, the body, the senses are inert because they are actually revealed. They are revealed by something else. They are revealed by another entity. And so we call that inert when something is revealed by another entity. It's not self-revealing. So some people might think that the body or the mind can produce consciousness, but as we have seen, there's no evidence of that. There's no evidence that the body or the mind or brain, they say, would produce consciousness. But here and now, there's direct evidence that the self is aware of thoughts, and the thoughts are not aware of the self. This is our direct experience. So now, who's asking this question? So that's also important. This is a question of a seeker who has purified their mind. So they're not asking about vasanas. They're not asking about why the body and mind and intellect function the way they function. They're asking what makes them function. So because the caliber of the student is a little bit deeper in this Upanishad, we understand that the question is way deeper. It's about what really prompts inert matter. And, it's not this question of how do we see things or how do we hear things, because science can answer that, right? How do we see things? How do we hear things? It's because we see things because light gets reflected, etc. Then it hits our eyes, it hits our brain, and the process of seeing happens. Sound hits our eardrum, and then it gets processed in the brain, and then we're able to hear sound. The student is not asking that because that's something that science can tell us. Science can tell us all of these facts. So that's not a question to ask a teacher of Brahma Vidya. But what the student is wondering is that I have this subjective experience of seeing, of hearing. It's a subjective experience. I see, I hear. What is that? How does that come to be? And therefore, that's the question. How is it that I see? What is making this process happen? How is it that I hear? How is it that I taste and I think? What makes this happen? And so this question is really about the innermost self. And it's a very, very beautiful question. And because we have to thank the student, because the student has asked us the question, that's why we have this question in the Upanishad, So we really have to thank the student. So now, what is the answer of the teacher? So as brilliant as the student's question is the answer of the teacher. And the teacher says, it's the ear of the ear, the mind of the mind, the speech of the speech, life of the life, eye of the eye. Shrotrasya shrotram, manaso manoyat, vacho havacham, saupranasya pranaha. So the teacher answers this way, and it would make one kind of wonder, why is the teacher answering in this way? Why wouldn't the teacher just say the self? Well, because the teacher has a very brilliant way of answering. First, the teacher wants to say, you are correct. The eyes, the ears, the prana, the mind cannot function by itself. So you are correct. There's something else there. There's something inside. And that's what's inside. That is the ear of the ear, the eye of the eye. It means it's inside. You don't have to go looking for something else. There's nothing outside that's making it function. Where your question is, that's where your answer is. Go deep into the ear. Go deep into the eye. Go deep into the mind. That's where your question is. So ear of the ear, mind of the mind, eye of the eye. Go deep. And this way also the teacher is taking the student from something that he or she knows, like the ear or the eye, to something that the student is yet to know. So it's a journey from the object to the subject. And so in this way, the teacher answers the question really beautifully. And when the teacher answers, the teacher even goes deeper into the answer. as teacher says, na tatra chakshur gacchati, na va gacchati, no manaha, na vidmaha. Means the eyes cannot go there, the mind cannot go there, the ears cannot go there. All of these can't go there. So if we just take one of these things, it's not part of the ear, but it makes the ear hear, and it cannot be heard by the ear. So, and it makes the ear hear sound. So it's not part of the ear, but it makes the ear hear, but the ear cannot hear it. So this is what the teacher is trying to convey, in and through the mantras, saying that the ears can't go there, the eyes can't go there, speech cannot go there, mind cannot go there. All of these things, they halt. They're not able to touch it. And with all of these mantras, that's what the teacher had emphasized. And so he says here, in and through all of these mantras, he says, really the object cannot know the subject. So the eyes, the speech, the mind, they really cannot know the subject. So like electricity illumines the computer, but the computer cannot illumine electricity and need not illumine electricity because electricity is self-luminous. Like that, the self reveals the mind. The mind cannot reveal the self and need not reveal the self because the self is self-luminous. So both, it cannot reveal the self and it need not reveal the self. It's not required. And actually, when we see, it's a proof of non-reality. When we experience something, it means that thing is an object. So therefore, it is unreal, we say, because it's dependent on the subject. So these are the things the teacher wants to convey by the mantras in the first chapter. And, some people might then say, well, this Atman that you're talking about probably doesn't exist. Well, it can't be perceived, it can't be thought of, so it doesn't exist. And, so maybe it's there, or some people say maybe it's there, but you will never be able to know it. Nobody will ever be able to realize it. So our answer to this in Vedanta is, if you can't see your own eyes, does it mean that your eyes are not there? We cannot see our own eyes, right? We cannot see our own eyes. We see a reflection of our eyes, but we cannot see our own eyes. But does it mean that our eyes are not there? No, because the fact that we're able to see proves that we have eyes. So like that, can we say that Brahman is not there? No, because the fact that we are able to think proves that there's something that illumines our thoughts, something that's aware of our thoughts. So therefore, we can prove that Brahman exists. In fact, Brahman is that which proves everything exists. So this doesn't stand an argument here. So now, so what is this? What is this? So then the teacher says, listen, Anyad eva tad viditat atho aviditat athi. This thing is something different from all that is known, and it is other than the unknown. This is what it is. So I've told you, it's the eye of the eye, ear of the ear, it's the mind of the mind. That's what it is. And I'm telling you now, as a second indicator, I'm telling you that it's different from the known and different from the unknown. So these are the two powerful indicators in the first chapter. And so with this different from the known and unknown, we again examined these words and we can see them in 4 different ways. So meaning one, that which is known is an object. And whatever is known, it is perishable. It is impermanent, right? Because it's based on the experiencer. As long as the experiencer is there, I have an experience of the object. So because whatever is known is an object, And because that object is impermanent, it's a cause of sorrow for me. It's a cause of sorrow for me because it disappears, it goes away. And so in our lives, normally, whatever is a cause of sorrow, it has to be given up. So whatever's known, it has to be given up because it's an object of experience. Therefore, it's impermanent. Because it's impermanent, it will cause me sorrow when it's finished, when it's over. And therefore, anything sorrowful is to be given up. But that which is unknown, it now represents that it's not unknown. It's not unknown because it is you. It's your very self. So it's not unknown. And it's not unknown also means that it doesn't need to be taken up. Because whatever is unknown, we need to know. We need to take on. But here, it's not unknown. It doesn't need to be taken up. So this self doesn't need to be given up. It doesn't need to be taken up. It's not known and it's not unknown that I have to take it up and know about it. And so this is one meaning. Then another meaning is that it's known, it's other than the known, and known means the gross and the subtle bodies, which are effects. These are known, these are experienced. And then the unknown means the causal body. The unknown, why? Because it's unmanifest. It's unmanifest. And that's ignorance and our vasanas. They're unmanifest. So by saying it is different from the known and unknown, it's different from the gross and subtle bodies, different from the causal body, which means really it's beyond effect and cause, because the gross and subtle bodies are effects. They're effects of our prarabdha karma. And the causal body, it's called causal body because it's the cause. That ignorance is the cause of everything. So this Atma is beyond cause, it's beyond effect. Then another meaning here, it says now it's different from the known and unknown in the sense that known means knowledge and unknown is ignorance. So Atma is not knowledge or ignorance. Atma illumines both. And you know, with knowledge and ignorance, it's very funny, but what we know at some point can become what we don't know. And what we don't know at some point can become what we know. So who's to say what's knowledge, what's ignorance? And when we go to deep sleep, everything is unknown. So Atma cannot be any of that. Rather, Atma illumines knowledge and illumines ignorance also. So different from the known and unknown. And then, of course, finally, which is the most direct, straightforward meaning of this, known means Atma is not an object. It's not known, means Atma is not an object, and Atma is not unknown because it's the very subject. It's not unknown because it's the very subject. So it cannot be unknown. It is that which is who we are. Atma is you. And so this is what the teacher is trying to tell the student. Atma is you. And know it to be this. So two very powerful indicators in the first chapter. Eye of the eye, ear of the ear, etc. And different from the known and unknown. And so what we come across, or what we understand then, is that this infinite truth is really the subject. It's not the object. So it cannot be perceived by the senses, comprehended by the mind, described by speech, and it really cannot be contemplated upon. When we do contemplate, we sort of kind of draw our thoughts inwards so that we can get to the source of all thoughts. But we really can't think about it. We just have to draw our mind inward. And this is what we gain from the first chapter, this practical meditation. It can be words, it can be the sight, it can be the sound, but if we keep withdrawing the mind from the words, from the speech of the words, to the mind which illumines it, to that very source of the mind. If we keep withdrawing the mind inwards, what will happen is we come to be as we are. Brahman alone remains. So the first chapter tells us that it's just a process of withdrawing, process of going inward. That's really all that needs to happen. And so the student gets excited, very, very excited. And now we enter chapter 2. And the student says, wow, okay, I'm practicing this withdrawing the mind, going to the source of the mind. I'm practicing it. And the student comes back and says, I got it. I got this. I know this. And the teacher said, no, if you think you know Brahman, you don't know Brahman. And the student is, the student is probably thinking, what do you mean? And this is because sometimes we tend to conceptualize Brahman. We tend to think Brahman could be a light or a sound or some kind of concept we have of Brahman, that we need to think of Brahman. We have all these things in our mind. And so the teacher is really trying to shake the knowledge of the student and see how firm is it? How true is the knowledge of this student? And so what happens is the student contemplates once again deeply. And this time, the student comes back and he roars. The student comes back and he roars. And it's a very, very beautiful roar. He says, Nahamanye suvedeti, nona vedeti vedacha, yonas tadveda tadveda, nona vedeti vedacha. So he says, I know and I don't know. So he says, I know and I don't know. What does this mean? So it really means that the student is trying to say, I know Brahman as my own self, the subject, but not an object. So nahamanye suvedeti. Not that, not that I don't know. Nona vedeti vedacha. Not that I don't know, but I know. Not that I don't know, but I also know. And so this is kind of a trick, because the teacher said it's different from the known and different from the unknown. So the student comes back and says, I know, and then I don't know, right? So which is different from the known and different from the unknown. It's kind of like in between here for the student. And so I know Brahman as myself, as a subject, but not as an object. Then after that, the student says, I got it, but how do you experience this Brahman? And so the teacher says, don't you know that Brahman is ever experienced? You don't need to experience Brahman. You don't need to be in a certain time or place and think that Brahman will be experienced someday, because pratibodha viditam matam. Pratibodha. Prati means in every. Bodha. In every thought. Viditam. It is known. Brahman is known in every thought. And matam means it's the right understanding. So in and through every thought, that consciousness illumines it. That consciousness is there. Just like in and through every object is light, but we never pay attention to light. Our minds go to the object. But in and every object, there's light. We wouldn't be able to see the object without light. In and every thought, there is Brahman. In and every thought, there is Brahman. There is pure awareness. So we don't need to go to any place or time or we don't need to go into any state to experience Brahman. In and every thought is Brahman. Pratibodha viditam matam. So please remember this. If ever you feel that I need to experience Brahman, Brahman is ever experienced, ever alive. It's impossible not to experience Brahman as one's own self. So then this is called the gateway. or what we say, upalabdhi dwara, is the gateway to Brahman, the thought. What is the result of this? Once I realize this knowledge, then the result is I am immortal. But what is this nature of immortality? The nature of immortality is I was always immortal. I am immortal. With or without knowledge, I am immortal. But because of the erroneous understanding, I think I'm a jiva. I think I'm mortal. I think I have to go through the cycle of birth and death and samsara and come back again next life. I have all these erroneous notions because I think I'm a jiva. But actually, I am immortal. Whether I know it or not, I am immortal. And therefore, it is said by self-knowledge, immortality is realized. One's eternal immortality is realized. Not that we become immortal. And by this knowledge, we gain strength, virya. What is that strength? That strength is to let go. Many times, we are unable to let go of things because we are attached. We're attached to a person, a place, an experience. We're attached to a desire. We're attached to so many things because we believe them to be real and we believe them to be sources of our joy. And so therefore, we have a weakness for them. We're enslaved by them, carried by them. We are following them helplessly. But for one who knows the truth, they no longer see anything or anybody as a source of joy, nor do they see anything or anybody as real in terms of their names and forms. All that they revel in is that pure awareness. Therefore, there is no, no feeling of wanting to hold on to someone, no feeling of wanting to control something, to change something. Everything is actually let go of. It's called tyaga. You just let go of everything. And it takes a strong person to let go. Weak people cannot let go. Weak people will try to do whatever it takes to hold on. But the strong people are free. And that is the beauty of their lives. That is the beauty of this knowledge. It gives the strength to let go. And so, therefore, this is a very beautiful thing. And the Upanishad goes to say, Yacheda Vedit ata satyamasti. If one realizes the self, in fact, this is the only purpose of life, one is fulfilled. Satyamasti. Nachet iha vedit mahati vinashti. Otherwise, it's a great destruction. Really, really great destruction. And so therefore, this is what we should put forth effort to do, to gain the knowledge of the self. And so a question might come, but who is that who can really realize this truth? Who is that who can sit here and say it's different from the known and unknown? Who is that who can say, Pratibodha Viditam Matam? It's that which illumines each and every thought, and I get it. And who is that who can abide in this knowledge? And so comes chapter 3. And chapter 3 is a little bit more light-hearted because we've had very deep Upanishad study. So now Kenopanishad Shruti Mata said, let me give you something a little light. I think your mind needs a little bit of a change to understand this knowledge. And so we come to the story of Agni, Vayu, and Indra. Agni being the fire god, Vayu the wind god, and Indra Devata, the Devata of the mind. And so we remember the story that there was a battle between the Devas and the Asuras. The Devas, or the gods, won, but they became very proud and they forgot that it was God who helped them. So God came as a yaksha, an adorable being. And they tried to find out who this yaksha was, but both Agni and Vayu, they did not succeed. Only Indra succeeded. And so what the story tells us is that only the person who's free from pride can realize the self. the fire god and the wind god, Agni and Vayu, they went to that yaksha. And when they, when the yaksha said, okay, you burn this blade of grass or blow this blade of grass, they couldn't do it. And instead of surrendering to that yaksha, they just left. They were just too proud. And this is also a very beautiful metaphor that's telling us to seek the self as a subject. The fire god represents the organs of action. The wind god represents the organs of knowledge. And Indra represents the mind. So all three of them really could not get that yaksha. Even for Indra, that yaksha disappeared. So we cannot comprehend the self once again with these organs of action, knowledge, or the mind. And they also forgot that everything is illumined by the divine, right? There was the fire god trying to challenge Yaksha. He thought he was fire and he was everything, but he forgot about the fire of the fire. The wind god forgot about the wind of the wind. And it finally shows us that even if Indra, that mind, even the mind couldn't comprehend the self. But because Indra waited, he got the knowledge from Shruti Mata. He got the knowledge from Shruti Mata, and he had a deep desire to know. And then he realized it. He realized the self. And so that's why Indra was then praised. And so was Vayu and Agni, because they got the knowledge from Indra. Now, one might say, but what if I'm having a hard time with this, right? Excuse me. I'm having a hard time with this knowledge in the sense that I get it, but I don't get it. I think my mind needs to be sharpened a little bit. So here, very beautifully, in chapter 4, now the Upanishad gives us some upasanas. Because maybe I'm not the ideal student yet. Maybe I still have a lot of work before I really can understand this. So one's mind needs some polishing, and that's called upasana. And so in chapter 4, we are given these beautiful upasanas. Upasanas are contemplations. They're contemplations which help us cultivate a single-pointed thought flow and which also divinize our mind and expand our mind. And we also saw that whatever we contemplate on, we become. And we saw the deep symbolisms of lightning, how knowledge of the self can happen just like that in a flash. And in that flash, everything's illumined. Or we can contemplate on the blinking of the eye. When the eyes open, the worlds are there. And when the eyes close, the worlds are gone. Or on the mind, on how the mind, in every single thought, there is a space, there is a silence. Go into that space or silence. Or tadvanam, on that self, which is adorable to all. So these are some contemplations we can practice. They are quite different from contemplations that we see in the Puranas on gods like Shiva or goddesses like Durga. They're a little bit different. And this was the style of the contemplations then. And then slowly, slowly, it evolved to more Pauranic contemplations. The subtlest contemplation, of course, is on Om, because Om is that sound which really contains everything. And in the Mandukya Upanishad, Om represents Brahman. So now, after all of this, the student says, please teach me the Upanishads. Please teach me the Upanishads. He actually says it in the Upanishad, please teach me. And so why does this happen? It happens to us because after knowledge, after receiving knowledge about the self, we still feel ignorant. We still feel like we don't know the self. And we also feel like maybe we still need to do something to know the self. And whenever we think about that, we should think about the example of the 10th man. All that was required was for the person to say, you are the 10th man. You are the 10th man. And that's it. So knowledge is complete in itself. Excuse me. Knowledge is complete in itself. we don't need to do anything else to be liberated. Knowledge is complete in itself. But yes, if we want to enjoy that knowledge, then spiritual practice is required. And I will speak about that next. But knowledge in itself is complete. Knowledge to realize that we are already liberated, you just need that knowledge. You don't need anything else to realize that we are already free. But as I said, to enjoy that knowledge is a different ballgame. The third erroneous notion is I have to experience Brahman. So sometimes we have this doubt that I have to experience Brahman. It is true, as we've studied in our previous texts, that samadhi, savikalpa, nirvikalpa are very helpful, very good, because they help us gain a lot of purity and vairagya. But that's their purpose. Their purpose is purity, single-pointedness, vairagya, dispassion. That's their purpose. Their purpose is not to experience Brahman, because Brahman is ever experienced. So whether in samadhi or out of samadhi, Brahman is that which is nitya samadhi, ever in samadhi. It is true that some spiritual saints and teachers will focus on samadhi. It is true, because that was their spiritual practice. So when we read the lives of saints and sages, they will recommend or they will share a practice that was very, very dear to them. And they will emphasize that quite a bit in their teachings. So that is true. So we just have to understand the concepts and then also understand where that saint, sage is coming from. And from their standpoint, they are right. So then what happens after this? We still don't feel liberated. Even if we've been told you're free, we don't feel liberated. And so the Upanishad said that's really because we haven't developed ourselves enough. And so to enjoy and to revel in that liberation, these are the qualities we need. So life is not anymore about seeking Brahman. I'm seeking Brahman. I'm trying to realize Brahman. It's not anymore about seeking Brahman, because you get it. It's yourself. But it's more about staying in it, right? Just staying, remaining in it. And the Upanishad says that those people who have these qualities will have absolutely no problem remaining as the self, abiding in the self, and enjoying this freedom. What qualities? So first we start with the feet of Brahma Vidya, which is tapas, dhamma, and karma. And we see that tapas is austerity, which creates a lot of energy, and it gives us such focus and single-pointedness. Then dhamma, control of senses, it preserves our energy. So it gives us a whole space of energy with which we can do things with. Then what do we do with this whole storehouse of energy? Karma, selfless action. We just give back to the world. So it's a direction of our energy in a selfless way. And what is the limbs of Brahma Vidya? So the Angani, it's called, are the Vedas, the different Angas of the Vedas, that etymology, astronomy, grammar, etc. These are the limbs, but also the Upanishads. Very most important, the Upanishads. They're the limbs of Brahma Vidya. And they are Brahma Vidya, in fact, that's what we have seen. And the heart of Brahma Vidya is truthfulness, because everything starts with being true to oneself, being true to where we are, what our practice is, what we do, and what we know. Everything starts with that, the truthful acceptance of who we are. And if we truly accept who we are, then we know what we need to do. But if we deny things, if we try to decorate our vices and be blind to our faults, you will never improve. So the heart of Brahma Vidya is truthfulness. That's Satya. And after that, of course, one experiences peace. Whether the world is at peace or not, one experiences peace. There will never be peace in movement. World is jagat. It'll keep moving, keep going. So many things will keep happening. Even if we hope for things to end, wait for things to end, don't worry, something else will come up because that's the nature of the world. Things will just keep happening. Different things will just keep happening. So the idea is to just focus on establishing oneself in one's nature of peace and stop seeking for the world to be peaceful. And in fact, there's nothing more important than this, because what could be more important than to wake up from this dream? And thus concludes Kenopanishad. So that is the Upanishad that we have studied. It's a very, very, very beautiful one. I think it's so comprehensive from the first chapter to the second, to the third, to the fourth. It has everything in it that we can imagine. It has everything in it for everybody. It even has a story. And it's so it's very beautiful. And of course, this is only possible because of the grace of God and the blessings of our Guru Parampara. So we are grateful to Bhagavan, to Guru, for making this possible, for shining through us, and all of the rishis and rishikas who have preserved this wonderful literature so that today we can open our books and chant these mantras. So as always, for the Upanishad, we will chant the first mantra, which is the Shanti mantra, as a symbol that this is not our end of the Upanishad, but it's just the beginning of our understanding. So let's chant Om Apyayantu. You can chant with me. Om Apyayantu Mamangani Vak Pranashchakshushrotramatho Balamindriyani Cha Sarvani Sarvam Brahmopanishadam Maham Brahma Nirakuryam Ma Brahma Nirakarod Anirakaranamastu Anirakaranam me astu Tadatmani Nirateya Upanishatsu Dharmaha Te mai santu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, we'll have some questions now.